Senator Schumer is he's nervous as a pregnant nun about losing his reelection to the socialist wing of his party.
They've just skedaddled while this shutdown goes on. And if you're not even showing up for work during a shutdown when you have the power to fix it.
I'm sorry, I'm aggravated. The people who are supposed to be protected are being completely cheated by Democrats in the Senate.
The blame game politically among lawmakers cranking up. Let's bring in the House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, one of the Republicans who is at work. Good to see you, Congressman. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you, John.
So let me ask the whip if we can count some votes here. Are you willing to vote for an extension of the enhanced Obamacare tax credits if the Democrats reopen the government?
We're not there yet, John. September 21st, the negotiations that took place last month, the House passed a clean CR on September 21st that will keep the government open for 7 weeks until November 21st. That issue that you're talking about, those enhanced premium tax credits that are the Obamacare tax credits, those are an end of the year policy issue. We're talking about funding the government, and the two are not related. So, and when you ask the whip, to go to your question, I got people on both sides of that issue. That negotiation has to take place, and in order to have that negotiation, you got to open the government.
Well, one of your members who's on the support side of that issue is Congresswoman Jen Kiggin. She has floated the idea of a one-year extension of the tax credits, which Hakeem Jeffries says is a non-starter. Listen to what he said.
A one-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits is not acceptable. It's a non-starter. Like, what world are these MAGA extremists living in right now? To think that Democrats are going to go along with a one-year extension. It's a laughable proposition.
You know, they say they want an extension. I mean, a year is a place to start, but it's like that old book, Give a Mouse a Cookie, right? And here's the thing, is that when Democrats first voted for these tax credits back in the Inflation Reduction Act, that was not permanent. It sunsets at the end of December.
Yeah, it's the
now
deadline
they want a
set.
permanent.
I'll tell you what's laughable. What's laughable is Hakeem Jeffries being called a leader. These guys all voted against funding our troops. They voted against funding air traffic controllers. They voted against funding WIC. They voted against all of these things that are so important to American people. And now they have the audacity to come out and start saying it was about something else. No, they're trying to make a political point. It is the terrorist wing of the Democrat Party that is holding them hostage. And you've got a willing participant in Chuck Schumer in the Senate who, frankly, is past his years. It's like an aging athlete, John, that doesn't have the same skill set that they had years ago. He's desperately trying to hang on to his leadership position in the House. And this is the fight that he picks, a fight that actually is going to hurt everyday Americans. It's crazy.
Maybe time for him to go to the broadcast booth, is what you're saying?
I'd keep him away from that, too. He doesn't have much of a presence.
So President Trump is about to bring out the hammer. The longer this goes on, he says, the more likely it is that there's going to be a fundamental restructuring of government, to which Chuck Schumer said this.
The bottom line is that Trump and his people are trying to threaten, use these people as pawns, and say they're not going to get paid, they're not going to get back pay, and all of these kinds of things. They realize it. So I've talked to air traffic controllers. I've talked to many, and they resent how Trump is trying to use them.
I mean, even some Republicans didn't like the fact that the president said, well, maybe people won't get back pay. But this idea that he will fundamentally restructure government, a lot of programs will be cut, a lot of people will be permanently laid off. That's going to put a lot of pressure on Democrats to come to the table.
Well, first off, OMB has said that the furloughed federal employees will receive back pay. It is the law, so that's already been taken care of.
And that's a Trump law.
But for Chuck, Chuck, end it. If you don't want the Trump administration to have to make some very difficult decisions because you shut the government down, then get 5 more of your members to vote yes on the clean CR and reopen the government. This could all be over tonight, John, if Chuck Schumer and his colleagues in the Senate would just pass the CR.
As we saw with Brooke Taylor's reporting a short time ago, this is starting to bite. There are some air traffic controllers who aren't showing up for work. There are flight delays going on. And typically when people start to get worried, when they're hurting, when they're inconvenienced, that's when they tend to say, I'm not blaming one side or the other, a pox on both your houses. How close are we to that?
Well, I think we're getting very close because the 13th is the last date that checks can be cut for the 15th. So if you're going to keep this thing closed, all right, whatever point you were trying to make, you haven't made it. You should open it right now so those checks can be issued on the 15th. My home state of Minnesota, John, I've got 13,000 National Guard troops that right now are not getting paid. They will not get checks on the 15th if Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate aren't willing to, by the way, not only vote for the clean CR, but the CR that they voted for 6 months ago and the same CR that they voted for 13 times under the Biden administration. This is insane. They should do the right thing, put the American people first. Let's get the government reopened, and then let's negotiate the way we're supposed to about a year-long funding bill.
All right. Well, so far there's no sign that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not an oncoming train. So we'll see where this goes. Mr. Whip, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.
Appreciate it. Now this.
Go to Fox News Alert right now on the government shutdown. It continues as we speak. Senate about to vote on 2 measures to end it. Standoff now in day 8. Speaker Mike Johnson blaming Democrats yet again, including my next guest, for failing to come around. First, the House Speaker from this hour.
Many Democrats in this chamber, by the way, I want to note, are going to receive paychecks this month, while the men and women of the U.S. Capitol Police who are protecting them will not. Here's one from New Hampshire local media. National parks caught in the crosshairs of government shutdown. Let me point out that both senators from New Hampshire, Senators Shaheen and Hassan, have repeatedly voted to keep the government closed.
Okay, well, that senator with me now, Jeanne Shaheen, Democrat of New Hampshire. Thank you for your time and good morning to you. Give our audience, give America some good news. Are you making progress?
Well, people are still talking to each other, my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I think that's helpful. But you know, what we really need is for the president, the speaker, the leaders in the Senate, and the Democratic leader in the House to all sit down and talk. You can't reach a negotiated agreement if you're not willing to talk to each other. And I think it's disappointing that the speaker has had the House out. I think this is day 19 since the House has been back. If we're going to get an agreement, we all need to be working together. That's what I think allows us to move forward.
Okay, so let me ask you that. So what opens it up? Is it an agreement to talk, or is it full-on agreement to go ahead and keep the health care subsidies where they are?
I think we ought to be able to do both. We ought to be able to keep the government open. That's what the American people expect of us. And I think we ought to be able to help those people who are going to, about 4 million of whom are going to lose their health insurance if we don't address those tax credits that allow them to afford their health insurance. And another 24 million are going to see their costs rise dramatically, in most cases about double. And as we look at who's affected by that, we found out yesterday that it's going to be about 270,000 veterans who are going to lose their, who are going to be affected by a cut to those premium tax credits. We know that 76% of people who benefit from those credits live in states that Donald Trump won in the last election. So it's in everybody's interest to address this, because if we don't, people are going to lose their health insurance, and that's going to affect the entire healthcare system.
You make some great points, and I think Republicans are well aware of that. The president is too, and I think so too is Speaker Johnson. But when these were voted for the increase a couple years ago, all the Democrats voted for it, and in that legislation, I do believe there was a sunset clause. So you voted for something that eventually was going to end, and now you're saying it's going to end, and what are we going to do about it? So yeah, well, in other words, you saw the light in the train coming, right?
Sure. And when President Trump's big, beautiful, what he calls his big, beautiful bill, I think it was a real betrayal of the American people because of what it does to health care. But when that was being discussed this summer, no Democrats were allowed to participate in those discussions. That was passed with entirely Republican votes. So if we're going to reach an agreement, we need to be talking to each other. And when I was governor in New Hampshire, and there was an issue affecting our state, I went up to the Republican Speaker's office and I said, you know, what can we agree to? How can we fix this? Because it's important to the people of New Hampshire. That's where we are now. And I don't think it's helpful when the Senator Thune and the Speaker say to President Trump, don't talk to the Democrats.
Okay,
that's
so
not helpful.
on that note, and Senator Thune says really good things about you too. He calls you part of the reasonable caucus, and Mike Rounds from South
we need
Dakota
a lot of reasonable
calls
people.
you a good partner. You've mentioned it a couple times. Here was the president asked about talking with Democrats. Roll this.
Are you speaking with Democratic leaders? What kind of negotiations?
Well, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that, but we are speaking with the Democrats, and some very good things could happen with respect to health care.
Would you make a deal with them on the ACA subsidies?
If we made the right deal, I'd make a deal.
I mean, there might be a little bit of movement there. I don't think a lot of people realize that some of these subsidies went to families making more than $500,000 a year. And I think when they hear that,
Well,
they think, wow, what was that all about?
That's just
so
not
the
true.
question then is this.
94%.
Here's the question. Has the
Let
debate...
me respond, though, because you're not accurate in what you're saying.
No, I will give you a chance.
94%
I
of
will
people
give you
who
a
get
chance.
premium
I want to
tax
get to this
credits
question.
make less than $200,000
Does
a
this
year.
debate not show us that the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, is no longer affordable given the current rules in America today? Your turn.
Well, first of all, let me go back to the president's comments. I think they were helpful in recognizing that this is an issue that affects everybody and we need to address it. Now, hopefully that means he will start talking to the leadership in both houses and we can reach an agreement that I think is very reasonable. The average salary of the person who gets those premium tax credits is $32,000 a year. As I said, 94% of people make less than $200,000 who are benefiting from those tax credits. And 56% of them live in districts that have Republican members of Congress.
I get it. Last
so
question.
it's in everybody's interest.
Why play stick 'em up now? Do you trust your Republican colleagues who say good things about you?
The reason we need to address it now is because insurance companies are setting their rates now.
Yeah, I get
People
it, but
are
you got
getting
3 months to
those
negotiate.
premiums. No. If we don't address it, November 1st is the opening of people enrolling in health insurance. If they're getting their rate increases now, this month, and if we don't address it, 1.5 million people are going to lose their health insurance if we don't do it until December. And it's going to cost the government $10 billion more, according to the Congressional Budget Office.
I'm out of time. I appreciate your time. Please come back. We'll get it done. Thank you, Senator.
Air traffic control staffing shortages continue to cause major flight delays for a second day amid this government shutdown, and it could keep getting worse.
I want people when they travel to get to where they're going. So if we don't have controllers, we're going to make sure the airspace is safe. So what we do is we'll slow traffic, we'll shut down traffic. There's a support staff that helps train them up. And this is affecting their ability for new controllers to get trained. So it has a rippling effect at a time when we're trying to get more controllers in.
And the Senate is expected to have another vote this morning, but it's expected to fail again. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy joins us now. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning.
Good morning. I know you've said in the past that you blame Chuck Schumer, you blame socialists in the Democratic Party for this shutdown. This is what Schumer says about the pressure he's getting from the left flank.
Are you worried about the pressure that you're getting from your left flank, and is that part of the reason that you've engaged?
No, the bottom line is very simple. We're fighting for the American people. And it's not just one small group of American people that want this. It's across the board. 55% of Trump voters, hardly a flank in our party, want this. That's why we're doing it. We believe that's our job.
Senator, he wants $1.5 trillion added to this for health care. Your reaction?
Well, I listened to the clip of Senator Schumer. His relationship with the truth is very casual. The truth is that this is a political shutdown. Senator Schumer he's nervous as a pregnant nun about losing his reelection to the socialist wing of his party, led by Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, which is in control. Now, we will eventually come out of this shutdown. Here's how I think it will happen. Senator Schumer, is a smart man. He's been around a long time. His first car was a Chariot. Washington is all he's ever known his entire life. He knows he's on shaky ground here in terms of policy. So here's how I think it'll end. Schumer will go to 6 or 8 of his colleagues and say, Democrats, of course, and say, I want you to vote to lift the shutdown. Now, he'll say, I can't vote with you. I've got to appear to be tough. I may even have to criticize you, but wink, wink, nod, nod. I'm trying to make the loon wing of the party love me, but you bail me out here. But he's got to be careful with that because he doesn't want it to look like a mutiny, because then he looks even weaker.
You write about how corrupt Washington is in your new book. It's called How to Test Negative for Stupid and Why Washington Never Will. You say common sense is illegal in D.C. Tell us more about this book that you wrote at your kitchen table in Louisiana.
It's a storybook. It's not policy per se, though I talk about policy through stories. Many of the stories are funny. Some of them are bizarre. All of them are true. I use these stories to make 3 points: to explain to the American people what the Senate is really like, to try to explain to the American people why in Washington, D.C., normal is just a setting on the clothes dryer, and to explain why it doesn't have to be that way if we have a return to common sense. I tell stories about President Trump, my one and only meeting with President Biden, Chuck Grassley, John Fetterman, Chuck Schumer, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. It's a very wide-ranging book, Ainsley. I hope it makes people think. I think it'll make you laugh. It may make you daydream, but it's all true.
You are so funny. These are some of the things you said in the book. You said the country was founded by geniuses, but being run by idiots. You say, my favorite, always be yourself unless you suck. Where do you come up with these?
I confess, I have to take full responsibility. God's blessed me with a great memory. When I read a clever turn of phrase, I remember it, and some of them I just make up. And I do believe in that candor is a mighty weapon. It gets me in trouble sometimes, and I contend that I don't get nearly enough credit for the things that I don't say, but I really want to say. But I just tell the truth, and people can decide whether they like me or not. I don't hate anybody. I look for grace wherever I can find it. But God gave me the right to remain silent, but not the ability.
This is why Politico named you America's most quotable senator. Senator, thank you so much. Congratulations on the new book, How to Test Negative for Stupid and Why Washington Never Will.
Ainsley?
Yes, sir.
Watch Brian and Lawrence like a hawk, okay? And try to get a little work out of them this morning. Okay?
We've been reading captions from your book all morning and just cracking up. So thank you for bringing some levity to this crazy news cycle. God bless.
President Trump hitting the Democrats over the government shutdown as the Senate gets ready to take another test vote to pass a stopgap funding bill. The move expected to fail. And Chad Program live on Capitol Hill. And Chad, the more I read about this big protest next Saturday on October 18th that the Democrats and progressives plan to hold, the more I think the Democrats will wait and let that happen. What do you think of that theory?
Well, it depends if that's kind of their marker, or maybe the 15th, the middle of the month. That's when the next paychecks are due for federal workers. Right now, no end in sight, and President Trump is now tinkering with not providing back pay to workers who are off the job. The Senate takes more test votes on government funding plans today, but expect the same results.
This week, paychecks start being affected for federal workers, and that is going to have real consequences for them and their families as well. Democrats are going to get another chance. They've already voted 5 different times now to keep the government shut down and against opening up the government.
Thune and other GOP leaders believe furloughed federal workers will receive back pay once the shutdown ends. Today's votes mark the 6th attempt to fund the government. There are informal talks, but they are very pedestrian.
There are good discussions going on between Democratic and Republican colleagues. They've sort of reached a little bit of an impasse, although I may learn a little more when I'm up here. As of lunch, the sort of the Republican position. We're glad to talk about this once government is reopened. Well, we really need more of a commitment than that.
Some Republicans are anxious to end the shutdown. GOP Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is siding with Democrats on demanding help to offset increasing health care premiums.
How are we supposed to say it's the Democrats' fault when we're in charge of the White House, the House, and the Senate? People don't buy that. I know people back at home absolutely are calling basically BS on it.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is open to a special bill to pay air traffic controllers and the military, but that requires Johnson to recall the House. Johnson has vowed to keep the House on recess until Senate Democrats accept the GOP funding plan. Dana?